Chapter 4. The weight of 36 lost territories hung over Zundari. Zuberi did not speak of the challenge ahead. He simply prepared for it. Abeni and Zala were still processing the truth. But there was no time to hesitate. A new player had entered the game. And Eshe was anything but simple. Eshe sat in the chamber prepared for her, reclining on a lavish pile of cushions like she belonged there. She hadn't asked for food or water. She hadn't asked for anything. She was simply waiting. Zuberi finally entered, his steps slow, deliberate. Eshe's lips called. "Took you long enough, my king." Zuberi said nothing. He studied her in silence. "You are not from Zundari." "No." "Then why are you here?" Eshe stretched lazily. "I travel where the wind takes me." Zuberi was unmoved. "You were found sneaking into my city. That was not the wind." Eshe chuckled. "No, it was not." Abeni and Zala entered behind Zuberi, both tense, watching the exchange. "What do you want?" Zuberi asked, his tone firm. Eshe finally sat up, her green eyes gleaming. "I want to make a deal." Abeni scoffed. "You think you're in a position to bargain?" Eshe's smirk remained. "More than you know, princess." Zala folded her arms. "And what exactly do you have to offer?" Eshe looked at Zuberi. "I know the lands you must conquer. I know the rulers you must defeat. I know the secret alliances, the betrayals before they happen." Zuberi held her gaze. "And why would you help me?" Eshe leaned forward, her voice softer now. "Because one of those rulers is my father." The room stilled. Zuberi showed no reaction. "You would betray him." Eshe smiled, but there was something colder beneath it. "He betrayed me first." The council chamber was dimly lit. A map of the continent spread before them. Zuberi, Abeni, Zala, and now Eshe stood around it, tracing the borders of the 36 lost territories. "We take the nearest first," Abeni suggested. "Secure our borders before pushing outward." "No!" Zuberi's voice was final. Abeni frowned. "Then what?" He tapped a distant point on the map, far beyond their borders. "We strike where they least expect." Zala leaned in. "That is deep in enemy territory." "Exactly." Eshe grinned. "You are ruthless. I like that." Abeni rolled her eyes. "Of course you do." Zuberi remained unshaken. "We take their strongest before they can unite against us. We send a message." Eshe's smile widened. "And I know exactly where to start." Far from Zundari, in a hidden chamber, the remaining noble traitors gathered. A figure stepped forward, wrapped in black robes, his voice sharp as a blade. "Bakari failed because he underestimated Zuberi." Murmurs of agreement. "We will not make the same mistake." A noble scoffed. "And how do we stop him? He is already moving to reclaim the lands." The figure smiled. "We do not stop him." The room fell silent. "We let him fight. We let him win." Confused looks. "And when he has conquered his enemies, when he is weakened and stretched too thin." A pause. "We take everything from him in one strike." The traitors nodded. The game was only beginning. The air was thick with the scent of war. Distant fires crackled beyond the hills, the glow licking at the night sky. The earth beneath Zuberi's boots was dry, cracked from years of sun and blood. The fortress loomed in the near distance, its towering walls black against the moonlight. In the hushed moments before the battle, only the rhythmic sound of sharpening steel filled the air. Warriors crouched in the tall grass, gripping their spears and swords, waiting for the command. Zuberi stood at the front, his gaze steady, his breath slow and even. The wind whispered through the valley, carrying the distant murmurs of guards stationed along the walls. "They are relaxed," Abeni murmured beside him. "They are fools," Zuberi replied. Zala stretched her arms, rolling her shoulders with a grin. "Then, let's not keep them waiting." Zuberi lifted a hand. The warriors tensed. Then, His fingers curled into a fist. The battle began. The first arrow cut through the air with a sharp whistle. It buried itself in the neck of a guard on the wall, his death gurgle lost in the rush of wind. Then, chaos. Warriors scaled the eastern cliffs with ease, their hands and feet moving with practiced silence. By the time the first alarm was shouted, the enemy was already dying. The crash of steel meeting steel filled the air. Zuberi moved like a shadow, his blade slicing through flesh and bone. A guard turned, barely registering his presence before a sharp shriek. His throat opened, blood spilling in a hot stream onto the stone floor. Abeni's twin blades danced through the enemy ranks, a movement swift, methodical. A soldier lunged for her, his heavy axe swinging down. She sidestepped with ease, a curved dagger slipping into her side, twisting. The sound of torn muscle and escaping breath was all that remained of him. Zala was fire unleashed. She weaved through the battlefield, a wild grin on her face, reveling in the combat. She dodged, countered, struck, every move, a step ahead of the enemy. A man tried to grab her wrist. She let him, for a moment, before using his grip against him, twisting his arm until bones snapped like dry wood. His scream was brief. The fortress burned. Smoke coiled into the sky, thick and suffocating. Sparks caught on dry banners, flames consuming them within moments. The scent of blood, sweat, and burning wood clung to the air. Soldiers screamed, some from the pain of wounds, others as they fled, only to be cut down from behind. Zuberi's men showed no mercy. The fortress had been claimed. Away from the battlefield, beyond the smoke and the screams, Eshe sat in the war camp, tending to the wounded. The flickering firelight cast shadows across her face as she moved between the injured, her hands steady as she pressed healing salves onto open wounds. A man groaned as she wrapped a cloth around his arm. His face was pale, drenched in sweat. "You'll leave," she said simply. He tried to smile. Outside the tent, the wind carried the scent of blood and death. She could hear the distant battle, the clash of swords, the dying screams. She closed her eyes. The vision had come to her before the battle began. Fire in the sky, blood on the sand, a shadow in the flames. She had told Zuberi what she saw, but not everything, because in the vision she had seen him fall. By dawn, the fortress was silent. The ground was littered with bodies, the air thick with the stench of death. Zuberi stood on the highest wall, looking down at the conquered land. His face was unreadable, his stance unchanging. Abeni sheathed her daggers, exhaling slowly. One down. Zala wiped blood from her blade, and 35 more to go. Ishi arrived at the fortress gates, her green eyes scanning the carnage. She said nothing at first. Then, softly, "It has begun." Zuberi did not respond. He simply turned away, already preparing for the next battle. The first step has been taken. The conquered fortress lay in eerie silence. The scent of blood still lingered in the cold morning air, mixing with the smoke of dying fires. Zuberi stood at the edge of the highest tower, gazing over the ruined battlefield. He felt no triumph, only the weight of what was yet to come. Footsteps approached. He did not turn. "You are troubled." Yeshi's voice was soft, measured. "You are hiding something," Zuberi replied, without looking at her. Yeshi's breath caught for only a moment. "I have told you what I see. Not all of it." Zuberi turned, his gaze locking onto her. Eshi had held her ground against many men, kings and warriors alike. But standing before Zuberi, his presence looming, unreadable, inescapable, she felt something tighten in her chest. A moment passed. Then her lips parted, and she spoke. "I have seen more visions of you than anyone before." Zuberi said nothing, waiting. "I see victories." She swallowed. "I see a kingdom built with your hands. I see women bearing your name. I see blood spilled in your honor." Her voice faltered. "I see you falling." Zuberi's jaw tensed. "Where?" "I don't know." "Who?" "I don't know." Her green eyes darkened, frustration creeping in. All I know is that there is a moment, a turning point, where she hesitated, where you are not standing when the dust settles. Zuberi exhaled slowly, unshaken, unmoved. Then, I will simply not fall. Yeshi frowned. It is not that simple, Zuberi. Everything is that simple. You believe me, chosen by the gods. Yeshi hesitated. Then, she nodded. Yes. A long silence stretched between them. Then, quietly, I also saw something else. She looked away, as if saying it aloud would make it real. I saw myself with child. Zuberi's expression remained unreadable. But behind them, Abeni froze. Abeni stepped forward, the regal way she carried herself, cracking just slightly. With child. Ishi turned, suddenly aware of the tension in the air. Zala leaned casually against the stone wall, arms crossed, smirking, but the hilt of her sword groaned as the pressure of her fingers crushed down. A bold claim, Abeni continued, her tone sharp, cool. And you are so certain it is his? Here she met her gaze without fear. The gods do not lie. Abeni's lips curled into a dangerous smile. Neither do my instincts, and they tell me you enjoy playing with fate too much. Mystic. Yeshi raised a brow. Jealous? Abeni let out a short, humorless laugh. Of a vision, hardly, of women throwing themselves at a man who has not yet claimed them. Even less so. Zala, who had been silent, finally spoke. Yet, you still sound pressed, princess. Abeni shot her a glare, as if you aren't just as irritated. Zala shrugged, smirking. Zuberi, silent through their bickering, finally turned away. Enough. His voice was calm, controlled, but final. The women fell silent. There is no time for foolishness. Prepare for what is ahead, or be left behind. And with that, he walked away. Abeni fumed. Zala watched him go, an amused gleam in her eye. As she exhaled, her thoughts still clouded with uncertainty. By midday, Zuberi stood before his men. They had fought well, but not well enough. They lacked discipline, precision, strength. That would change. Zuberi's gaze swept over them. Warriors hardened by the fight, yet still lacking what they needed to truly conquer. He stepped forward, slowly. The weight of his presence pressed down on them. You believe this was a victory? He asked, his voice cold. The men stiffened. We won, one of them muttered. Did you? Zuberi murmured, tilting his head. Would you say that if I were your enemy? The man swallowed, sweat beading at his brow. Your swords are sharp, your spirits are willing, but that is not enough. His voice cut through the air like steel. Strength means nothing without control. Bravery means nothing without discipline. And victory means nothing if you are too weak to keep it. His eyes locked onto each man, burning into them. You will train, you will bleed, you will break, and only then will you be worthy of standing beside me. You were commanded before by a weak man who knew very little of actual combat. I will make sure you all will be prepared for what is to come. Silence. Then, a resounding chorus of warriors pounding their fists against their chests. Yes, chief. The air trembled with their cries. Zuberi nodded. Then, we begin. Far from the fortress, deep in the halls of a rival kingdom, the traitors plotted. Maps lay sprawled across a grand table, marking every stronghold Zuberi had yet to conquer. A nobleman sneered, slamming his fist against the wall. This cannot continue. He is moving too quickly. A shadowed figure sat at the head of the table, fingers steepled, calm amidst the anger. Let him move, the figure murmured. The nobles glanced at each other in confusion. Let him take the next stronghold. Let him taste victory. The figure leaned forward, eyes gleaming in the candlelight. Because once he does, we will remind him that victories can be undone and kings can be broken. The stronghold was theirs, but Zuberi did not allow celebration. While Abeni and Zala were eager to move on to the next conquest, Zuberi saw the cracks in their forces. They were not ready, so they would remain for weeks, training, bleeding, strengthening. The sun scorched the training grounds as warriors pushed their bodies to the limits. Sweat, blood, exhaustion. Zuberi personally oversaw their training. He stood like an unmoving mountain in the center of the field, watching as men sparred with raw aggression. His sharp gaze missed nothing. The clumsy footwork, the sloppy strikes, the moments of hesitation. Stop, he commanded. The warriors immediately ceased their attacks, panting. Zuberi stepped forward. He picked up a sword, testing its weight before turning to the man who had fought the sloppiest. You! The man stiffened. Strike me. The warrior hesitated. Zuberi's eyes narrowed. Now. The man roared, swinging his sword with all his might. Zuberi moved once. A sharp clink. His blade deflected the strike so effortlessly that the man stumbled forward, completely off balance. Zuberi struck his chest with his palm, sending him sprawling into the dirt. You are too reckless. You fight with passion, not control. He turned to the others. Who among you is satisfied with being weak? Silence. Then you will listen, you will learn, or you will die in the next battle. From the sidelines, Abeni watched with admiration. He's ruthless, she murmured. Zala, sitting beside her, smirked. That's why we're still alive. While Zuberi hardened his warriors, his enemies sharpened their own blades. In a distant court, a rival warlord sat in his chamber, surrounded by his most trusted spies and advisors. Zuberi lingers in his stronghold, a spy reported. He trains his warriors endlessly. The warlord smirked. Good. Let him waste his time. One of his generals frowned. Should we not strike before he moves again? The warlord shook his head. No, we will let him train. Let him grow comfortable. His grin widened. Then, when he finally moves, we will ensure he walks into his own grave. The room rumbled with dark laughter. In the quiet moments between battle and training, the tension between the women of Zuberi's harem only grew. Abeni sat in Zuberi's quarters, helping him strategize over maps. She leaned over, her fingers tracing potential routes for conquest. If we take this path, we'll reach the next stronghold in 3 weeks. Zuberi did not respond. She glanced up, catching the sharpness in his eyes. What is it? They expect us to move quickly, he murmured. We will do the opposite. Abeni smiled. You truly have no weaknesses, do you? None that matter. Abeni's smile faltered as she recalled Isha's vision. Was that true? Before she could press further, the door opened. Zala strode in, rolling her shoulders. You've been here all night, Abeni. Let someone else have him for a moment. Abeni narrowed her eyes. You speak as if he is yours to take. Zala smirked. Not yet, but I'm patient. Zuberi ignored them both. Enough. If either of you have something useful to say, speak it. If not, leave. Abeni huffed, standing. Fine. I have better things to do than waste time with a brute and a savage. Zala chuckled. Ah, princess. I think you mean you're leaving because you're losing. Abeni shot her a glare before exiting. Zala turned back to Zuberi, tilting her head. She's jealous. So are you. Zala tensed slightly, then grinned. Maybe. Zuberi returned to his maps, as if the drama of women meant nothing to him. Zala leaned against the wall, watching him with sharp eyes. You won't stay here forever, she mused. Zuberi did not answer. Zala smirked. I'll be ready when we leave. She left, the scent of sweat and steel lingering in the air. Zuberi exhaled, his gaze returning to his plans. War awaited, but so did something even more dangerous. a kingdom, and the women who wanted to claim its king. The stronghold had become a furnace of steel and sweat. Weeks turned into months, and still Zuberi did not move. His warriors sharpened their skills, his women sharpened their tongues, and in the shadows, his enemies sharpened their knives. He knew they were waiting. What they didn't know was that so was he. Late one night, Zuberi sat alone in Bakari's old study, the candlelight flickering across aged maps and fragile documents. The scent of old ink and parchment mixed with the ever-present aroma of war, sweat, leather, and steel. He had read the reports. He had seen the patterns. The enemy expected him to rush forward, eager to seize the next stronghold. But they were patient. That was their first mistake. He traced his fingers over the map. They wait for me to act. They think I move like a beast. Predictable. Hungry. He exhaled through his nose. But a beast that does not strike makes its enemies uneasy. Behind him, Abeni and Zala entered, mid-argument. Telling you, Zuberi will move when the time is right. Abeni snapped. He does not need to be rushed by the impatient. Zala scoffed. And yet, we sit here while our enemies laugh at our hesitation. A king who does not move loses his throne before he even sits on it. Abeni crossed her arms. Perhaps if you had any experience leading an army, you would understand the value of patience. And perhaps, if you weren't raised in luxury, you'd understand that warriors grow restless without war. Zuberi barely lifted his gaze from the map. Both of you, out. The command was calm, but absolute. They stiffened, then turned on their heels and stormed out. On the training grounds, tension burned hotter than the midday sun. Warriors, who once fought as brothers, began to bristle. Swords clashed harder. Fists flew quicker. Men who had spent months preparing wanted blood. One evening, a fight broke out, one warrior accusing another of cowardice. Zuberi arrived before the first man could draw his blade. Silence fell as he approached, his presence as heavy as an executioner's blade. You grow restless, he said, his tone unreadable. The men swallowed. You are eager for war. You crave battle. A pause. Good. Then Zuberi moved. In a blink, he grabbed the nearest warrior, flipping him onto his back. Before the others could react, he struck 3 more, his movements so precise that they collapsed without time to counter. The last man standing gritted his teeth and lunged. Zuberi caught his wrist, twisted, and slammed him into the dirt. He stood over them, unshaken, unbothered. You want war? His voice was low, dangerous. Then be worthy of it. The fallen men groaned, but nodded. Zuberi turned to the others. You fight each other now because you are not ready for the real enemy. If you waste your strength on foolishness, you will not survive what comes next. He left them to sit with that thought. While Zuberi prepared his warriors, the tension between the women only grew. Abeni and Zala clashed almost daily. Sharp words, sharper glances. Ishi remained silent but ever watchful. One evening, as they sat in the war tent, Ishi finally spoke. You two exhaust yourselves. Abeni raised a brow. And you sit in the shadows, as always. Ishi smiled, but there was something in her eyes. Shadows are where the truth is clearest. Zala scoffed. Enough of your riddles, mystic. Ishi's gaze flickered to Zuberi. The 3 of us may fight amongst ourselves. She tilted her head. But none of us have what we truly want. Zala's fingers twitched over her blade. Abeni's lips pressed together. Zuberi remained silent. Ishi leaned back, eyes glinting. Interesting, isn't it? By the time the 3rd month passed, Zuberi had made his decision. He gathered his warriors under the moonlight. We march soon. A ripple of anticipation ran through them. They wait for us. They think they know how I will move. A smirk. just barely. They do not know what is coming. The warriors pounded their fists against their chests. The storm was coming. And this time, Zuberi would not hold back. War is upon them. The time for waiting had ended. Under the pale moonlight, the stronghold emptied as warriors prepared to march. Armor tightened, weapons sharpened. Zuberi stood at the front, silent, unmoved. He watched as his men lined up, their bodies strong, their spirits eager. This would be their first true campaign, the first step in reclaiming his throne. Yet, in the flickering torchlight, a pair of watchful eyes lingered on him. Eshi. Unlike the others, Eshi never demanded Zuberi's attention. She never argued like Abeni, nor challenged him like Zala. Instead, she drifted into his space like a quiet, warm breeze, never forceful, but impossible to ignore. That night, as he sharpened his blade, she entered his tent. "You do not rest," she murmured. Zuberi didn't look up. "Rest is for after the battle." Aishi chuckled, stepping closer, close enough that a scent, earthy, rich, laced with something sweet, lingered in the air. A warrior who does not rest breaks before his enemies even strike. Zuberi set down his blade. Aishi took this as permission and gracefully knelt beside him, her fingers ghosting over his wrist. "Your hands tell stories," she mused, her touch featherlight. "Strength, pain, duty." Zuberi said nothing, but he did not move away. She tilted her head, her voice softer now. "And yet, you carry more than steel and blood." Her fingertips brushed his forearm. "You carry fate." At this, Zuberi finally met her gaze, his eyes dark, deep, unreadable. "Do you fear my fate?" he asked. She smiled, slow, knowing. "I fear nothing." Then, to his surprise, she leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to his wrist. Not possessive, not demanding, just a quiet, lingering devotion. Zuberi watched her, still, silent, stoic, but he did not stop her. And Aisha, she smiled as if she had won something neither Abeni nor Zala had even realized was a battle. While Zuberi's army prepared to march, far beyond the stronghold, another force gathered. The rival warlord sat in his darkened chamber, listening as his spies whispered of Zuberi's growing army. "He finally moves," one reported. The warlord smirked. "Good." His fingers drummed against the table. "Set the trap. Let him believe he is the hunter until it is too late." The shadows in the room seemed to grow deeper. War was coming, but so was something far more dangerous. As dawn broke, Zuberi led his army forward. His warriors moved with precision. His women followed in different ways. Abeni with strategic focus, Zala with her ever-present challenge, and Aisha with quiet, unwavering devotion. They did not yet realize the war ahead would test them all, and Zuberi, he remained unshaken, for he was not just marching to war. He was marching to take back what was his. The storm has begun. The night before the first battle, Abeni sat alone in her tent. The flickering oil lamp cast long shadows across the fabric walls, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. She had spent months forcing herself to keep up with Zayla, to fight, to spar, to prove. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was not a warrior, not like them. She could fight, yes, but was that truly where her power lay? Her hands clenched into fists. "I am not weak." Yet, she knew she could not keep running forward into battle beside Zuberi. And so, she swallowed her pride. And she went to him. Zuberi was alone, sitting before a fire, sharpening his blade. He did not look up when she approached. "Speak." Abeni hesitated, then stepped forward, the firelight painting her golden brown skin in warm hues. "I cannot keep doing this," she said quietly. Zuberi stilled. "Explain." Abeni took a deep breath. "I thought that if I charged into battle with you and Zala, you would see me as strong, worthy. She exhaled. I wanted to be what you needed. Finally, Zuberi looked at her. His dark, steady gaze pinned her in place. Then, in his usual calm, unshaken tone, he spoke. I never expected you to charge into battle. Abeni blinked. You didn't? No. Zuberi turned his blade in his hand, studying the steel. I always knew where your strength lay. The fire crackled. Your mind, your words, your ability to see what others cannot. His gaze flickered back to her. You fight with strategy, with diplomacy. That is where your power is. Abeni's breath caught in her throat. You would rather me stay behind? Yes. You don't think me weak? Zuberi's expression remained unreadable. You are Abeni. A pause. You do not need to prove your worth to me. The words struck deeper than any blade. Abeni had spent so long trying to earn something she had already had. And just like that, her heart was lost to him. A few feet away, Zala leaned against a tree, arms crossed, listening. She had come to mock Abeni for backing out of battle. But as she heard Zuberi's words, his unshaken confidence in Abeni's abilities, something unexpected flickered in her chest. Admiration. He saw them for what they truly were, not what they tried to be. Zala exhaled sharply. Stupid woman. She turned on her heel, striding off, but not without one last glance at Abeni, whose face was still frozen in shock and adoration. Inside the tent, Ishi smiled softly. She had already known. She had seen it coming. But even a mystic could still be moved. Zuberi was a force of nature, a storm, a warlord. And yet, he had a way of speaking just enough to shape those around him. Ishi exhaled, tracing absent patterns in the dirt. The lion does not need to roar to be heard. And now, Abeni had finally heard him. By morning, the army prepared to move forward. Abeni stood with Ishi, watching as Zuberi and Zala led the charge ahead. For the first time in months, she felt no shame in where she stood. Her place was here, where her strength truly lay, and she would use it to make sure Zuberi never lost what he had fought for. Even if the greatest battles were yet to come, love deepens, rivalries shift, war awaits. The battlefield stretched ahead, like a hungry beast, waiting to be fed. The enemy had taken position along the ridgeline, hundreds of them. They outnumbered Zuberi's forces, but numbers alone had never won a war. Zuberi, unmoving, unreadable. The morning sun cast his figure in a golden glow, yet his expression remained as cold as a midnight sky. Behind him, his warriors waited. Their breath was steady, their hands clenched around weapons sharpened for war. And beside him, Zala was grinning. You see that, my king? She mused. They think numbers alone will save them. Zuberi said nothing. His silence was enough. Then he raised a single hand. The signal. The charge began. The earth trembled as warriors stormed forward. Zuberi led them like a force of nature, silent, brutal, unshaken. His spear was swift, precise, merciless. Where he moved, enemies fell. Zala fought beside him, her speed unmatched. She cut through men like a viper, too fast to catch, too deadly to ignore. But the battle was not without struggle. Abeni, stationed back at camp, watched from the ridgeline with Ishi. Her heart pounded. They fight well. Ishi murmured beside her, voice calm, hands wrapped around her prayer beads. But Abeni's sharp eyes caught something. Movement in the trees, a second force, hidden, waiting. Her blood ran cold. It was a trap. Zuberi! Abeni's voice split the air. But it was too late. From the trees, arrows rained down. Zuberi barely moved as the first wave struck the ground around him. One arrow sliced across his shoulder. Blood bloomed across his dark tunic, but he did not flinch. He merely lifted his sword. His warriors shifted formation in an instant. Shields locked. The trap had been set, but Zuberi had already planned for it. They thought they were clever, Zala huffed, wiping blood from her cheek as she fell in beside him. How long did you know? Zuberi did not look at her. He did not need to. Zala snorted. Of course. Even in the chaos, Zuberi remained the storm's eye. With a flick of his blade, he gave the next order.